Today, for Women's History Month, I want to share with you a story about my third great grandmother, America Hunt Harrell, and the process of homesteading that she survived may also entice you to search for your ancestor homestead stories, whether or not you know about it. After learning so much about her in the past few years, she is my absolute shero. This story should be of great interest to help you in searching for information about your family using your own genealogy in the history of the United States. It demonstrates how so many of our families overcame diversity, hardship, through sheer determination for the love of their family. I'm going to briefly relay the process of homesteading property and land that many of our ancestors obtained when given an opportunity to do so, some for the very first time in their lives, and in which some of their descendants still have in their possession today. The Homestead Act of May 20th, 1862, signed by President Abraham Lincoln, gave that opportunity to many people, whether they were immigrants, black, white, and poor people who never thought they would be able to afford it. Let's begin. My homestead great grandmother, America Hunt Harrell. She was born in 1820 in Kentucky and died in Mississippi in 1895. I call her my shero. Now, what exactly is a homestead? A basic definition is a farmland with a house on it and improvements, any type of improvements thereafter. But today we're going to look at the Homestead Act of May 20th, 1862. The Homestead Act of May 20th, 1862 was signed into law by President Abraham Lincoln. He wanted to encourage the settlement of public land and to establish small individually owned farms in order for someone to provide for themselves and their family. The president's Republican Party also wanted to avoid the possible expansion of slavery west of the Mississippi River. Anyone who qualified could file for up to 160 acres of land per person, and it was to begin on January 1st, 1863, which was also the emancipation date of the slaves. Was this a war maneuver? The Homestead Act freeing the slaves and the beginning of enlisting black men into the Union Army's United States colored troops all began at the same time. America also had a son who wanted to enlist in the United States colored troops. Who then could apply? As you can see here, it could be male or female, single, married, or widowed. They had to be the head of a household or at least 21 years old. It wasn't to be based on race, and they had to be a citizen or an immigrant who had already filed for citizenship. The stipulation that they had never taken up arms against the federal government was aimed directly at the southern states who had left the Union government. They had to build a dwelling place or house and other structures and maintain residency for at least 5 years. They had to farm the land while living there and make improvements called proving up, such as clearing the land, building other structures such as corn cribs, barns, smokehouse, fencing, etc. If they were a soldier in the Union Army, they could only stay on the land for 6 months if they paid $1.25 per acre, and that way they didn't have to wait the 5 years. You had to complete an application plus pay a small filing fee, which to a lot of poor people was not a small fee. After proving up the homestead and meeting all requirements of living on the land for a minimum of 5 years, the claimant had to post a notice of publication in a local newspaper and pay for it for several weeks, plus include the names of the witnesses and a description of the land. But they only had to have a minimum of 2 witnesses to accompany them to the nearest land office to testify and verify that the claimant had completed the homestead. Once the application was approved, the claimant received the land patent confirming the property of theirs. I have an asterisk there showing travel time. America had to travel to Jackson, Mississippi from Kirby, Mississippi, which was a little over 90 miles one way. So she either paid for the witnesses to go with her or made some type of arrangements for their travel. The first person to apply for a homestead was Daniel Freeman, and his picture is there. He camped out all night in Brownsville, Nebraska, in order to be the first one to pay his filing fee for the homestead at 1 minute after midnight. But on January 1st, 1863, there appeared to be a little problem for the formerly enslaved blacks. And what was that problem? The problem for newly freed slaves was that citizenship did not come with emancipation. Black men and women still could not apply for a homestead. It would take several more years to be ratified before blacks became citizens. Newly arriving immigrants also could not apply until they had become citizens, but most settled in the East in already established cities. The states along the East Coast also were not homestead states. Native Americans and Chinese immigrants also could not apply. That could have impacted the freedmen's hopes for citizenship and land occurred on April 14, 1865, when President Lincoln was assassinated. Would their citizenship be rescinded? Would their freedom be rescinded? That was the question that was on the back of everyone's mind. My great grandmother, what was to become of her and her family now? As you can see in this record, they were still on the plantation of Henry Hunt, although free. More than likely, they were sharecropping and saving their money. Listed here is the 1865 Registry of Freedmen residing on the property of Henry Hunt in Franklin County, Mississippi. This occurred between August and October of 1865. Her son Peter isn't there because he had already left in 1864 to join the Union Army United States Colored Troops, and the other son of Henry Hunt had left to join the Confederacy. This document shows the Reconstruction Amendments and their impact upon the freedmen. The 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, one to abolish slavery and it being illegal. The 14th Amendment, granting them citizenship 5 years after emancipation. And the 15th Amendment allowed all men to vote no matter their skin color. However, this did not apply to the Native Americans and the Chinese immigrants. The rise of several terrorist groups in this time period began murders, lynching, and terrorizing former slaves to keep them from becoming landowners. This, my family had to maneuver around and figure it out. They didn't apply for an homestead until after these acts were passed. Now we'll take a look at some of the homestead documents and their examples. In this example of an original application for a homestead, I used America's Son's application as there wasn't one in her file. Also, and how much he paid in 1871 to apply for his homestead. He paid a filing fee of $14, which in today's money is $340. Today, his land of 157 acres is worth over $500,000. America paid $77 filing fee in 1883, which is $207 today. Her land would be worth a little more over $139,000. This example is a homestead notice of publication that had to be filed prior to going to the land office. This is an example of a man named Peter Clark of Marefus, Louisiana, as America did not have one of these notices in her file. It listed the name of witnesses. They could have been easily terrorized to keep from being a witness because everyone would see their names. Only 2 had to go and testify. The trip to New Orleans was 72 miles one way. For America, it was 94 miles one way. So they had to either pay for their witnesses to travel with them and being away from their farms for a day or two, or they had to clearly make some type of arrangements for it. This is a copy of the original witness statement by America for her claim of proving up her homestead. She stated that she moved onto the property in 1883. Of the 39 acres, she cleared 15 acres for farming. She had 100 bushels of potatoes, 50 bushels of corn, worth $75. She and her children built her a log 16 by 16 square foot cabin that housed a bed, a barrel, chairs, and a table, and its value was $25. She built 3 corn cribs, that was valued at $30, and her total value of all her belongings, including her 5 cows and a yearling and her farming equipment, was all that she had. It might not have been much to others, but it was priceless to her, a free woman to do as she pleased with it. And according to the census, her daughter, youngest daughter, always lived with her, including in this cabin. This is a copy of the recorded land patent that America received after a year later from she and her witnesses testifying as to proving up on their property. Now let's go to the Bureau of Land Management search records that are online so I can help you try to uncover to see if any of your relatives own property through the Homestead Act of 1862 or the previous one of 1820. This is the page for the Bureau of Land Management. It's at blm.gov. This is the only page that has this particular picture on it. And there are many others, blm.com, .net, .org. So make sure that it's blm.gov. The arrow below, if you just click on check out the GLO Records website and their website, you can go there or take the long way around, click on services, then land records, then general land office records, then land patents, and you will find it. But the easiest way is just to use the GLO records. Now don't let this page frighten you. You only have to choose a state from the drop-down box in which your ancestors lived on the left-hand side. Choose the county if you know it, but if you don't know the county, just choose the state name, but you have to put in the last name. And if you know their first name, that's fine, but it could be spelled several different ways, so don't give up if it comes up empty. Then just press the orange button. Those three things, that's all you have to do. Now, if more than one name comes up, don't worry. This is the page that you can sort. You can sort by last name, you can sort by date, you can sort by county, and notice the dates. If it's going to be 1820, I believe is the earliest, or maybe about 1818. This is when Mississippi became a state. Then you can sort by county, which I have done starting with A, and it starts over to the right-hand side. But notice the accession number that is in blue, right to the left of the screen, and the left of their names. Click here for the information on the homesteader. Again, this document is what came up when I pressed on that accession number, and it's for America again. Now, if you want that patent, all you have to do is click on patent details, and it'll come up, and it will reflect when it was dated and signed and granted. And with America, it was President Benjamin Harrison who signed her patent just days before he left office. Now, this is when your genealogy will come in handy to prove or disprove if it's your homestead ancestor. You can use census records, wills, Bibles, deeds, pedigrees, DAR records that you submitted. But on here is the 1880 census. You can see that Peter is the head of the household and his mother, America, is living with him along with his wife and younger sister. And then when I clicked on America's name, it came up that she was a widow, and it described her just like it did on that 1865 document. Only here it says she's mulatto. On the 1865 document, it said she was yellow. So she looked more Caucasian than she did African American. That's especially helpful are county land plat maps. There's one online. You have to pay for like $20 for either a month or every 3 months on the right. And I've listed that source. It also comes in a book. The one on the left is the actual county plat map. And not only do I have my Patriot ancestors listed here, but I also have another great great grandfather who purchased his land. And it's just a really nice thing to have and will help you in your genealogy. What do we do now? It's a definite call to action. Check your genealogy for ancestors who might have filed for a homestead or purchased property if they lived between 1863 to 1976. That's for the 1862 homestead. You might find them as far back as 1818. Verify it's your ancestor through other sources. Go to the Bureau of Land Management website and check. Go to the National Park Service to see if any of your ancestors are listed. And for African Americans, it's called Black Homesteading in America. Order the copies of your ancestors' homestead files through the National Park Service, NARA, or from Genealogy Friends. The cost will vary with each one, as well as the length of time it will take to get it. Once you find an ancestor, you can also contact someone like Bernice Bennett, who lives in Maryland, who for a small fee will go to NARA, retrieve copies of the original homestead files, scan, email, or mail the copies to you. Submit your story to the Facebook page to be verified and submitted to the National Park Service and placed along on side with other homesteaders. so much for your time, and I certainly hope that I have helped someone to be able to locate other ancestors and find more about the whole person and who they were and what they did, what they looked like, and what they said. And have a wonderful day. Goodbye.